Michael had always lived a quiet life in Arizona. A school teacher by profession, he spent most of his days in classrooms filled with restless children, chalk dust floating in the air, and the hum of ceiling fans battling the desert heat. Outside of work, his life was uneventful: simple walks home, evenings with books, and the occasional visit to the town's small diner. Yet deep within, he carried a quiet sense of justice, a belief that fairness was something worth standing up for, even if the world around him often preferred to look the other way. One evening, as the sun sank behind the red hills and the sky turned into shades of gold and crimson, Michael's walk home took a different turn. The usually calm street was filled with raised voices, sharp and angry. He slowed his pace and noticed a group of strangers surrounding an elderly man. As Michael stepped closer, he recognized the man immediately: a Chief Gray Eagle, the respected Apache elder, known throughout town for his wisdom and calm presence. The strangers were clearly outsiders, their tone loud and hostile. Their words carried mockery, dismissing the chief as if he were nothing more than a relic of the past. Michael watched, heart tightening, as their aggressive stance grew sharper. Chief Gray Eagle stood tall, his back straight, his weathered face calm yet proud, refusing to bow to their intimidation. But he was old, and Michael could see the imbalance here. This was not a fair argument, and the tension could spill into violence at any moment. Michael felt a pull inside him, something beyond fear, something rooted in principle. Though not a fighter, he could not stand by. Taking a steady breath, he stepped forward, his voice clear but calm. "That's enough," he said, positioning himself between the strangers and the chief. His tone wasn't threatening, but it carried conviction. For a moment, the group faltered, surprised by his sudden involvement. Michael held his ground, shoulders squared, gaze firm. Sometimes courage was not about fists, but about presence, and his presence was unshakable. The air thickened with silence. The strangers exchanged glances, their earlier bravado slightly cracked by Michael's unwavering calm. One muttered something under his breath, another scoffed, but none dared take the next step. After a tense pause, they turned away, their voices fading into mutters as they walked off down the street. Michael didn't chase them, nor did he gloat. He simply stayed still, ensuring they were gone, before turning back to the chief. The danger had passed, but his heart was still racing. Chief Gray Eagle studied him quietly. His dark eyes, deep with years of wisdom and stories untold, softened as he reached out a hand and placed it on Michael's shoulder. "You defended not just me, but honor," the chief said, his voice steady, like the flow of a river that had witnessed centuries. Michael swallowed, unsure how to respond. "I only did what anyone should do," he replied quietly. But the chief's gaze suggested otherwise. To him, Michael's actions carried weight, a weight Michael himself could not yet see. The chief gave a slight nod, as if acknowledging a bond that had just been forged, invisible yet powerful. Then, with dignity intact, he turned and walked away, leaving Michael standing on the dusky street. The teacher exhaled deeply, realizing his palms were damp with nerves. He shook his head slightly, brushing the moment off. To him, it was a small act, a natural instinct to protect someone who deserved respect. Still, he couldn't deny that something about the encounter lingered in his mind, like a chapter just beginning. That night, as Michael sat in his modest home, the desert breeze carrying a faint chill through the open window, his thoughts wandered back to the chief. He replayed the scene, the words, the silence after. He told himself it was over, that he had done his part, and life would go on as it always had. Yet, beneath the surface of his reasoning, there was an odd sense of anticipation, a feeling that the world around him had shifted slightly, the kind of feeling that hinted at change on the horizon. When morning came, the sky was pale blue, and the sound of birds stirred him awake earlier than usual. Michael dressed and went about his routine, still half lost in thought about the previous evening. As he brewed his coffee and glanced out the window, everything seemed the same, yet quiet, ordinary, predictable. But as he finished his cup and opened the front door, he froze. What he saw was unlike anything he had ever imagined. The calm doorstep he knew so well was no longer the same. There, standing tall in the rising sunlight, were three women towering in height, their presence commanding, yet graceful. They wore traditional Apache attire, their long braids glistening in the morning glow. Their figures were striking, their gazes steady yet kind. Michael blinked, unsure if he was dreaming. The tallest of them stepped forward with a warm smile. "We come from Chief Gray Eagle," she said gently. "You honored him. Now, we honor you." Michael's breath caught, stunned beyond words. His life, once simple and quiet, had just been rewritten by a single act of courage. The following morning had seemed ordinary at first. Michael had brewed his coffee, watered the small plants on his porch, and enjoyed the calm desert air. The sun was just climbing above the horizon, painting the Arizona sky with soft shades of pink and gold. He was still thinking about the incident with Chief Gray Eagle, telling himself again that it was finished, that life would return to its quiet rhythm. But when he finally opened the front door, expecting nothing more than the stillness of the street, his world shifted in a way he could never have predicted. Standing at his doorstep were three women unlike anyone he had ever seen. They were taller than him, strong in build yet graceful in movement, their long dark braids catching the morning light. Their traditional Apache attire was woven with patterns that seemed to hold stories within them. Their presence was commanding, almost overwhelming, but softened by the warmth in their eyes. Michael blinked twice, certain his mind was playing tricks on him. But they remained, as real and solid as the earth beneath his feet. The tallest of the three stepped forward, her expression calm but purposeful. "We come from Chief Gray Eagle," she said, her voice steady, resonant, and kind. Michael's heart pounded in his chest. The chief, he had expected perhaps a word of thanks, maybe even a simple token or gesture of appreciation. But this was beyond anything he could have imagined. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The women exchanged knowing glances, and then, as if to ease his discomfort, they laughed softly, their laughter carrying like music through the crisp morning air. One of them placed a hand over her chest and said, "You honored our chief. Now we honor you." The words struck Michael deeply. He had never seen himself as a hero. To him, stepping forward in that moment of conflict had been instinctive, a simple act of decency. But to the Apache people, it seemed to mean so much more. These women were not a casual thank you, they were a living symbol of respect, trust, and the forging of an unlikely bond. Their presence was both a gift and a message. Michael felt his breath catch, caught between disbelief and awe. He wanted to explain that he hadn't expected anything, that he didn't deserve such recognition. But when he met their eyes, he saw no judgment, no doubt, only sincerity. These women were not there because of obligation, but because they believed in the chief's words, and by extension, in him. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to form a response, yet all that escaped his lips was a quiet, "Yeah, broken bar, I don't know what to say." Their smiles widened, as though his honesty pleased them. The tallest woman spoke again, her tone gentle. "You need not say anything now. Respect is not always spoken of, it is lived." Michael stood silently, trying to steady his thoughts. The other two women moved slightly closer, their presence filling his small porch with an energy he could not explain. It wasn't intimidating, though their size and strength were undeniable. Instead, it felt protective, almost reassuring, as though an invisible circle of trust had suddenly surrounded him. He realized, with a mixture of wonder and humility, that this moment was far greater than himself. The women seemed to sense his hesitation, but they did not press him. Instead, they simply stood there, allowing the silence to stretch comfortably, their warm laughter occasionally breaking it. Michael noticed how their voices blended together, light yet strong, carrying the rhythm of tradition and the echoes of generations. In that moment, he understood that this was not about him receiving a reward, it was about the chief extending a bond, a bridge between two worlds that rarely touched. And Michael had been chosen, unexpectedly, to walk across it. As the morning sun rose higher, Michael invited them inside, though his home felt far too small to contain their presence. They accepted with grace, moving carefully as if aware of the space they occupied. Michael offered them water, which they received with gratitude. Conversation was minimal, yet meaningful. Their words carried wisdom, each phrase deliberate and steady. Though they spoke gently, their very existence in his living room seemed to shift the air, filling the space with the sense of history, strength, and unity that Michael had never felt before. He realized then that the gift was not about companionship or ceremony, it was about connection. These women embodied the trust of their people, a living reminder that his actions had touched something larger than himself. Michael's world, once defined by classrooms, books, and quiet evenings, had opened to something vast and profound. He felt both humbled and uplifted, as though he stood at the edge of a new path he had not chosen but had been called to walk. The realization settled deep within him: his life would never again be the same. As the day unfolded, the women remained kind and patient, speaking little but conveying much through presence and gesture. Michael, though still unsure of what the future held, found himself strangely at peace. The desert air outside carried the promise of change, and in the company of these three towering figures, he felt both grounded and elevated. It was clear to him now they were not just a gift, but the symbol of destiny itself, forged from courage, respect, and the unseen threads of fate that had woven their lives together.